Hello? Okay, fantastic. So, yeah, this is my second time at the conference, and it's great to be following Joe and Chad and being involved in the seasteading movement. So I'm here to talk about two things. One is Atlas Island, and that is our seasteading project. Thanks to Tim Allen, we've got a new slogan as of today, and that is vote with your boat. Let me move to the next slide here. Okay. So what is Atlas Island? For those of you who were here last year, you'll remember some of this. We're an international community of like-minded people who believe in freedom and individual sovereignty. I would personally, take the title of anarcho-capitalist. Not everyone feels that strongly, but a lot of us do. We want a society based on natural law and unalienable negative rights. We want to protect those for all our members. We also all agree that interactions between our members and members of the society should be based on voluntary association and the non-aggression principle. And what differentiates us from other libertarians, like the Free State Project, which I greatly admire, is that frankly we're tired of arguing and fighting for our rights through the process of political change. We want to vote with our boat, opt out of the existing societies, and opt into freedom as soon as possible. And we've developed a pragmatic plan to establish that goal and make this happen, bridging the concepts of seasteading, free private cities, and anarcho-capitalism. So what is our vision as an organization? Our vision, like I said earlier, combines the concepts of free cities or private cities and seasteading. And you'll see how those tie together, because seasteading gives you the option as individuals to move easily your real estate between different cities, and private cities encourages those cities to compete for residents and customers. So when you combine the two, it really creates this great synergistic effect where it's going to encourage the best possible governance at the lowest possible price. And how that vision would play out is that individuals would own their own vessel of some kind, whether that's a boat or a sea pod, whatever people choose. And over that vessel, they're sovereign, it's completely their property, and they don't answer to anyone. It also provides them with the complete freedom of choice to move their vessel and their property anywhere they want in the world and to any platform that they so desire. But, life is best lived in communities. You don't want to live out in the ocean in your sea pod all alone. So the way we'd organize those communities is around floating platforms where those vessels can dock. And those platforms would provide essentially a marketplace. So an area for businesses to congregate and residents to come gather and exchange services and goods. And those marketplaces will be governed by resident contracts, as in the free city model, where everyone who docks to it agrees to a clear set of rules that is explicitly laid out in writing and that governs those interactions and the jurisdiction and the arbitration process if there's disagreements. And as I mentioned earlier, this ability to move between platforms not only provides the benefits of private cities on the platforms, but the easy ability to have residents move between them and force them to compete for the residents and for that business. There we go. So our plan is broken down into 5 stages, which you can find out more about on our website. But briefly, stage 1 is we're developing an online community. I guess a network state is the new vogue term for that, of people who share our values and want to help bring this to reality. Stage 2 is actually getting those people onto boats, because most of our members like the idea of seasteading, but frankly, most of them have never owned on a boat, let alone lived on one for a period of time. So in this stage, people will be looking at getting some kind of floating vessel, again, whether that's a boat or a sea pod, and moving into it in a marina, ideally near where they're located currently, but to some degree regionalized. So at least a couple in America and the Caribbean, a couple in the Mediterranean, and potentially elsewhere in the world, depending on where our members are at the time. These marina communities would then provide the opportunity for our members to meet in person and start developing an internal economy. That means that you can trade with them, you can selectively use their services, potentially make use of technologies such as cryptocurrencies, embrace agorism, and really start developing a community that is self-sufficient and that is able to then move out onto the ocean at some point in time. Once you get a big enough community and enough members in a marina, it would then be time to start building some larger infrastructure, like a floating platform. And we would first station this in stage 3 in a harbor, so a protected water that prevents large waves and storms from incurring on you, but still gives you easy access to the city and all the other amenities nearby. We call that the harbor community. Once we've built out this platform and established that it works in a harbor, we move on to stage 4, where we move that platform and all the boats associated with it out into the coastal waters. Now this stage still falls under the jurisdiction of the nation state, but this is kind of the final beta test before we're ready to move out truly into the ocean and be independent. And then, when you're ready, all of those harbor communities can move to a central location outside the hurricane belt in warm tropical waters and form an offshore community, which would be a truly independent seastead. Now, when I say independent, as Joe mentioned, the vessels and the platforms would all be flagged with flags of convenience. But when you're flying the flag of Liberia on a vessel made in, Panama with a whole bunch of people from America and Europe, functionally speaking, as long as you're not doing anything grossly criminal, you are independent and you have as much freedom as you will realistically get anytime soon. So this year, what I've been focusing on is developing another vessel which might be amenable to this lifestyle of mobility and, travel. And I got to thinking, what is it that people want in a vessel for seasteading? And I came up with some ideal requirements to produce a vessel that would be amenable to this lifestyle. And the first thing is we want that vessel to be ocean capable. It's nice to have something that can float on a lake, but unless you can actually move outside of your lake and outside of your country, it does limit your ability to shop around between jurisdictions. We also want the vessel to be easily operated. You don't want something that's going to take years and years of sailing training to operate. We want a vessel that's energy independent, because if you're constantly having to go back and buy fuel every few days, you're really not that independent to move, and it limits your ability. As well, same with water. You want to be able to produce your own water. And finally, we want to be connected to the world. You don't want to just be out in the middle of the ocean, writing postcards through some post service that doesn't exist. You want to be able to remain connected, especially for the digital nomads. And then absolutely last is we want this to be affordable. And now that's a relative term. Obviously, everything has a cost, but we're targeting, a typical middle-class family in Western Europe or North America. So to speak a little bit more about each of these capabilities, when I talk about a vessel that's ocean capable, we want something that's Class A rated, meaning that it can be safe to traverse the Pacific or the Atlantic Ocean within reason. You're not going to go to the polar regions or the North Seas in a small vessel, but anything that a normal sailing vessel does, we should be able to do. You also want, for that perspective, to have a relatively indefinite range. If you're going across the ocean, you don't want to have to stop every couple hundred miles and do a big loop around it to refuel. In addition to that, you want to be able to move, but not just move, you want to be able to move quickly. And the reason being is that if you have a vessel that's very stable, but only moves at a half knot, and a big storm comes your way, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Whereas if you have a vessel that can do 5 or 10 knots, you can hopefully, with modern weather forecasts, get out of the way of most of those storms. And finally, in terms of ocean capable, you need to have a vessel that's big enough to be safe on the ocean, but also you'd want one that's appropriately sized for an individual family unit. You don't want to have to be going in with 100 other people to purchase a vessel. And also, a smaller vessel gives you the advantage of having access to inland waterways. I'm not sure if you're aware, but Europe has a massive network of inland waterways, and Prague, for example, is accessible to vessels of a certain size. So you could literally come from the ocean, from America, sail across, and sail your vessel in here, park here for a month, attend the conference, and enjoy Prague, and then move on to Paris or Frankfurt or any of the other cities on these inland waterways in Europe. We also want the vessel to be easily operated, as I alluded to earlier. Any person can take a couple weeks, spend it on a boat, and learn to operate a simple vessel. If you're talking about a sailing vessel with multiple sails and complex geometries, that's going to be a lot more complicated. So we wanted to focus on a vessel that's easy to operate and requires minimal training. Given that, we wanted assistive technologies, such as station keeping, GPS guidance, all the nav systems that you'd expect in a modern vessel. We'd also want this operation to be easy for families. We don't want this just to be a community like it was out west in the early days. We want to have whole families, not just 20-year-old guys who are up for an adventure and willing to risk their life. So the vessel needs to be stable and comfortable in the conditions in which it's suitable to operate in. And finally, as Chad alluded to, we want to make sure that the maintenance costs are low. You don't want to have to be going and scuba diving every couple months to redo the bottom of the vessel. You want to minimize your port time so that you can maximize your time out in the open and also reduce the costs associated with it. Now, from an energy perspective, this is an interest of mine who's also to some degree a prepper. So I think the time has come, whether you believe in global warming or not, that solar electricity should be powering most of our lives simply for the fact that it provides that true independence. And we've done the calculations, and on a reasonable sized vessel, we can put enough solar panels on the roof of that vessel to power not just the domestic needs of your everyday activities in your house, but also the ability to move that vessel around. So you would never have to refuel this vessel. In addition to that, though, of course, you always want battery storage in case the sun doesn't shine, which it tends to not do at night or during storms. And further, when you have batteries and solar panels, if there's a really bad storm coming, you can combine the two, the power from the solar panels and the power from your batteries, to give a quick boost to your speed and get out of there quickly. And when you're using solar and batteries, it allows you to simplify things a great deal in terms of the design of the system. You can make all of your domestic needs powered by DC electricity, which is simple, efficient, easy to repair, and allows easy compatibility with modern technologies like electronics. In addition to electricity, water is essential for life. and you're on the middle of the ocean. How ironic would it be to be in the middle of the ocean and not have enough water to drink? So our vessel would require a water production facility, and that's something that's easily available now. They have reverse osmosis filters that can allow you to produce as much water as you want for domestic use, fresh water, as long as you have the power to supply those. As well, we want to be able to manage our own wastewater. We don't want to be, storing wastewater and having to go into ports to dump it. So we want to have the ability to manage gray and black water separately, including with a macerator. So at sea, you can dispose of it and not constantly hold it. And then also holding tanks for when you are in those sensitive areas so that you're not violating any environmental rules or destroying the environment. Now, this is a thing that's come recently, connected worldwide. Starlink, other technologies are coming on board. For you digital nomads, you can literally put a satellite dish on your boat, be anywhere in the world, and be as connected as you are in the heart of downtown, New York or London, which is fantastic. So that high-speed internet not only gives you the ability to work remotely, it gives you the ability to remain in contact with your friends and family wherever you are in the world, and also, to connect with other seasteaders. As well, you have access to entertainment. You don't need to go to the cinema anymore. You've got Netflix on your boat, so you can Netflix and chill in the middle of the ocean. And finally, that provides the opportunity for remote monitoring of your vessel. So if you're not actually on it, you've gone on vacation, you have satellite internet, you can have cameras on your vessel, you can watch it, make sure no one's breaking into it, trying to steal it. And potentially moving forward, you can then add the ability to remotely control your vessel. So say you want to live the nomad lifestyle, you want to be in the Mediterranean in the summer and the Caribbean in the winter, but you really don't fancy too much going across the ocean yourself. You could hop off for the spring and fall and direct your vessel to drive itself across the ocean. You meet it there when it gets there. And then the last point is affordability. So boats are difficult to mortgage because they're mobile and they're a depreciating asset. But that being said, this is ideally intended to replace the primary residence. So it should be less expensive and it should be affordable for the family who can buy a normal house. You do have to consider the upkeep cost of it. But in general, we're targeting a middle-class budget. So I present to you our first renders of what we call the Ark of Liberty. A double entendre there with the two meanings of ark. I'll talk to you a little bit about the specs. So it's a 19 meter by 9 meter long and wide catamaran, Class A. It's going to be ocean certified, so you can take it anywhere in the world. It will also fit inside most European waterways. It's going to be operated by joystick with electric motors, very easy to operate, no sails to pull, no diesel engines to maintain, very minimal maintenance. It will have 20 kilowatts or more of solar power on the roof that allows you to fully power your mobility as well as your domestic needs at any time you want, so you're completely independent from the grid. Given that, you also have the ability to produce and dispose of your own water and wastewater, so you're not relying on the grid for that either. You have worldwide connectivity with satellite internet anywhere you want to go. And our target cost for this is about $500,000. We're aiming to lower it as time goes on and mass production occurs, but when you look at most houses in North America and Europe, that's kind of in line with what you're looking to pay. So anyone who's truly committed and owns a house should be able to sell their house, buy one of these vessels, and sail the world and start seasteading. So, in summary, Atlas Island is an international community who's working to achieve liberty in our lifetimes. We're combining the concepts of seasteading as well as free private cities to develop the most free possible society given today's legal system. Floating vessels provide the freedom of choice to move between these different free cities as well as to tour the world and go wherever you want to go while maintaining your own accommodations and your own belongings. The Ark of Liberty is our design for sovereign individuals who want to be digital nomads but don't want the hassle or inconvenience of living out of the suitcase and also want the independence of being completely off-grid for electricity, water, and having the ability to store over a year's supply of food. So if anything happens, COVID, you're free to travel the world. You can be independent for over a year with absolutely no contact with anyone else if you don't want it. But on the flip side, you can go anywhere in the world you want and contact anyone you want if you so choose. So this vessel allows true physical independence and mobility. It can serve as a building block for a voluntary community of seasteaders, which is what Atlas Island intends to become. And it's targeted at a price point that's affordable for the middle-class family and a design that is amenable to mass production when we develop that market. So I'd ask you all to opt into freedom and follow the Ark of Liberty. Vote with your boat and join us at Atlas Island. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, there's a question back there.
Mason, excellent presentation. I was actually looking at the presentation from last year, and it looks pretty much the same. So, what has happened between last year and this year?
So I think you looked at the first few minutes, because the first few minutes are a summary of Atlas Island, which is the same, but the entire Arc of Liberty part is new. So in the last year, we've been developing that vessel, which will facilitate the plan that remains the same from last year. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.